if it's really a great brand as opposed to a great technology or patent protected monopoly. It's a great brand because I am paying extra for the way it makes me feel.
What's going on with Ukraine when you look at it from a marketing perspective?
I have no idea. I can talk about marketing as the metaphor that it is. It's true stories that stick with us that we want to spread.
Welcome to the Hard Way podcast with Joe De Sena, founder and CEO of Spartan Races. We're teaching you how to overcome your obstacles in your life the same way we teach our 10 million plus Spartans to overcome obstacles on the course, with insight from the smartest, most accomplished experts from every corner of the world. Get ready to elevate your life today.
When battling brutal Spartan obstacles over a mixture of muddy miles and tough terrain, starting off on the right foot means any foot protected by the lasting comfort and proven durability of Mud Gear socks. Mud Gear started equipping Spartans over 10 years ago, and since then, they've perfected the art of protecting your most valuable race day assets. From the way they fit, to the way they wick and drain moisture, to their strategic cushion and venting, Mud Gear socks are a must for any Spartan hoping to not just survive, but dominate the course. Endure longer and race stronger with Mud Gear socks that are made tougher, just like you. Shop Mud Gear at the Spartan store, at your next Spartan race, or right now at mudgear.com.
Joe De Sena here, CEO and founder of Spartan and the Hard Way podcast. I got a great one for you today. I got Seth Godin. Everybody out there knows the number one challenge for us at Spartan is we sell hard work, we sell commitment, we sell discipline. And that is not something that the world wants to buy. The world wants easy. Seth is an expert at selling. Seth, welcome.
You started with a statement that everybody knows that this is the challenge. I completely disagree. I think it's the biggest thing you got going for you. The world is never your customer. No matter what you sell, the world is not your customer. We are here to offer something to people who want it, to make a change they're hoping to have happen. And picking something that isn't popular is actually the right thing to do, especially if it's generative and helps people. Because no one's going to buy something from you because you ran an ad. They're going to buy something because their friend told them about it. They're going to buy something because it came from someone they trust. Coach Glassman was doing the CrossFit thing. People wanted to show their peers their blisters, right? Not everyone in the world wanted to see that. Not everyone in the world wanted to show that, but it's enough. So it's the smallest viable audience that fuels the growth of every brand we care about. Not the biggest possible one, but the smallest one we can.
So a small niche. When I started 25 years ago, there was no Facebook. There was none of this. And I thought maybe there's 50,000 people globally that would do this crazy stuff. And so you're arguing, and this is very insightful. You're arguing that's enough. That's enough. A small audience is enough.
Well, the word small carries a lot of baggage with it. So I've had a bunch of best-selling books. Not one of them has reached more than 3 million Americans, which means from a market share point of view, I have 0% market share. It's enough, right? That if you sell 2 million copies of a book, if you get 4 million people worldwide to sign up for Spartan next year, it would break all your systems. It would be so many people, right? It's enough. So instead of saying that's small, you actually say the days of MASH, the days of I Love Lucy are over. We're never going to have a third of all America doing the same thing at the same time. Who needs us? We're here for them. Everybody else, here's the phone number for Ozempic.
I love that, by the way. I love that attitude. When you talk to your board members, when I talk to my board members, right, they're always asking, how do you get more people? And the truth is, I do want to change 100 million lives. We've had 10 million people to date. But then you do say to yourself, or at least I do, well, shit, there's almost 8 billion people on Earth, right? That's a tiny, tiny number. Did I really move the needle?
Well, the only way to move the needle is a little bit at a time. That every once in a while, something comes along like the smartphone, but not very often. And in fact, if there are 10 million people who you've made an impact on, how many of those people are bringing a friend next time? And if it's not all of them, that's the work. How do I create something that will raise their status, their affiliation, if they bring someone with them? The model here is Alcoholics Anonymous. It's not anonymous. Everyone's heard of it. Nobody knows where their headquarters are. Nobody knows. They have no ad budget. Nobody knows who's in charge. It doesn't matter. The reason it works is because people who are in it tell other people about it. Well, that's how everything works. That's how Patagonia works. That's how the movement for dealing with climate change works. A few people tell a few people, and we repeat.
What's the secret to creating a very high, virality coefficient? We have it, but it could always be more. What's the secret?
So one of my early books, which I gave away for free on the internet, it's called Unleashing the Idea Virus. You can still find it. I wrote it in 1999 or 2000. What I describe in there is ideas that spread win. That if you have a factory and everyone in town comes for a free sample, you're going to go out of business. But if you have an idea and everyone takes a free sample, you win. So what causes it to spread and to stick? Well, one thing we can do is learn from this epidemiology and the spread of disease. I called it Unleashing the Idea Virus long before COVID, and COVID caused so much trauma, I'd probably changed it to Idea Fungus now. But the point is it sticky, like a tattoo, or is it temporary, like a massage? Once I get one, do I want to keep talking about it, or is it invisible? So I'm told that when people go get their haircut, other people notice you had a haircut. So they say, oh, nice haircut. Whereas if you get a massage, no one asks about that because it's invisible. So we seek to make an idea visible. We seek to make it stick with people. And mostly, it needs to raise the status of the person who shares it. And that could even be a stupid cat video. If your circle admires you because you were the first person to find a stupid cat video, it'll spread.
So we check those boxes, right? We give everybody a finisher shirt and a medal. They post it, they share it all over the internet because they're proud. It definitely raises their value within their circle because they feel more badass. We check those boxes. I guess the more friction you could remove to getting those boxes checked, the more viral you become.
Well, I don't know if you've ever played hockey or not, but if there's no friction, you fall. You actually want friction to get grip against the ice. So what you're looking for is why, if it's socially awkward, would I wear the medal? Why, if it's socially awkward, would I bring it up with someone who needs to hear about it? Because what's happened is you've hit the easy ones. The people it's easy for me to brag to, or the people who want to do that sort of bragging, right? That's going to work, and then it's going to stop working because then we bump into social awkward stuff. How long did it take before cigarettes went from scientists know they're going to kill you to it's shameful to light up if you're at my house for dinner, right? That took a generation because in the culturally difficult moments, people were uncomfortable saying, no, you can't do that here. The other, when I think about what's the experience you're offering people here, part of it is a sense of community. But it's easy for that community to go overboard and for outsiders to say, that doesn't work for me. And so it's not that you need to make it more convenient, but you might want to make it more conducive. So what does it mean for me to try this and become welcome into this? Or you could do what some cults do, which make it less conducive and make it so there's a huge hurdle to get over it. But the people who are in it even more seriously. But these are the variables that we move around, not because we're taking something, but because we're offering something to people who want it.
Years ago, I had a restaurant in New York. Never had a restaurant before, didn't know much about it. Was afraid it was going to go out of business, had to come up with a name. And I was afraid that if it didn't work, we'd have to change the name. So I said, you know what? We're not going to name it. We didn't name it. And then I met some young kids from Columbia University. They said, if you want it to be popular, we have to get a bouncer, a red carpet, a red rope, curtains so nobody could see inside. And for 1 month, we're not letting anybody in. And it's going to be expensive. But we did it, and it became the hottest place in New York. And I would hear people walking out in front of the place, months later, and they say, oh, that's that place with no name. And their friend would say, well, how do you know how to go there if there's no name? And, well, if you don't know, then you don't know. It just became this thing. It was crazy.
Yeah, and Rails continues to this day that, you behave when you're there because you don't want to lose your table. And you don't want to lose your table because other people want a table, but other people want a table because they can't get a table. And so what you get is a story to talk about, not a plate of spaghetti.
Right. It's all about the story. So I don't know if you were running Spartan. Today I'm handing you the keys. I'm exhausted. I just went through COVID. It was a shit show. What would you do different? Like if the goal was to get people healthy, because that really is intrinsically who we are. You wanted to. What would you do? You're in charge.
I think we sometimes get so hung up on how we spend our days that we forget to see the systems that we're trying to change. Systems that stick around because they're good at sticking around. And the thing you invented in the back of your driveway at the beginning, which didn't take a lot of money to start and which caused some traction and has funded itself pretty much as you've gone, that might not be the tool that helps you get to where you want to go next. That ideas that are anchored in an event or a device spread more slowly than ideas that work without one. Because the idea, where did handshakes come from, and where do you have to get a license to shake someone's hand? Once handshakes started to spread, everyone had to do handshake. If we decided that you owning and operating an event didn't have to be the thing you actually do all day, what are the ideas that you can bring if you would just let them go that would be more likely to spread and organize? So when Chris Anderson and I were sitting around talking, that's how TEDx was invented, right? Because TED was, there's only a certain number of seats. You got to go to Vancouver. It's expensive. You get status. You get something to talk about. But if you say the rules of TEDx are 4 pages long, and if you meet our rules, you can have one, well, guess what? There's a TEDx every 12 hours now. And if you're serious about spreading an idea, you got to say we're not going to be in one city, because it's the idea. That's the engine. Maybe it makes more money. Maybe it doesn't. You didn't say that your goal was to make as much money as you could. Your goal was to get people in the tribe on the journey. Well, that might be one way to think.
Something that you're going towards less friction, right? I mean, handshakes, there's not a lot of friction there.
There is when there's a virus going around, and there is when you're in a country where people are used to doing a different kind of greeting to each other, that it came with an enormous amount of hassle and cultural worry. What if you offer to do this and they don't shake back, right? Or think about how long neckties lasted and then how long it took for them to go away. These are things that stick in the culture for a long time. It's not easy. It's not just convenient. It's how do you figure out how to make it permeable for the people who want to be part of it, so that being part of it is worth more than not being part of it.
Yeah, I go back to what you said earlier. I think about, seat belts or no seat belts, or cigarettes or no cigarettes, or even ski helmets. They weren't a thing, and then they became a thing.
So the very first blog post that I wrote, I've written 9,000 blog posts. It wasn't the first day. It wasn't the first day, but it was in the first couple hundred days. It was the one that made me feel like I sounded like me. It's called the Provincetown Helmet Insight. And my wife and I were in Provincetown, Cape Cod, and we went to rent bikes. And what we noticed as we were walking into the bike rental place is all these couples were on bikes. And I noticed things for a living, and I noticed every single pair of people, either both were wearing a helmet or neither was wearing a helmet. But I didn't see one couple where one was and one wasn't. So I'm standing in the bike store for 10 minutes before it was our turn, and I figured out what was happening. And what's happening is this. You'd pick out your bike, you'd size your bike, and then the guy behind the counter would say, "Do you want helmet?" And whoever spoke first, that's what the couple did. And so, if you want more people to wear helmets in Provincetown, what you do is you take both helmets and you put them on the counter and you say, most people wear helmets. And now they're going to take them unless someone speaks up and says no. And that shift is transformative. And we forget to do that when we're in the idea of spreading an idea.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. How did this happen for you? Like, you wrote so many books, you have an instinct for marketing. You're clearly a student and a teacher. How did this path become yours?
My high school English teacher wrote in my yearbook that I would never amount to anything. And I took exactly one English class in college. But I got a job at a software company in Boston. If I didn't write my own ad copy, no one was going to do it. If I didn't write my own manuals, no one was going to do it. And I discovered that there's an empathy in writing so that other people understand you, showing up for them, not for you. And then I started one of the very first internet companies. I invented email marketing, and that led me to have the authority to write the first book, Permission Marketing, that people said was a real book. And so I said, I'll do that again. So I've been doing that ever since.
That's how it happens. And then you end up, you happy?
I decided to be happy 45 years ago today, and so far it's working.
That's awesome. People you feel need to decide to be, I guess they do, right?
You know, Joe, let's think about this. Anyone who's listening to this has more resources than the last king of France did. You have access to a $5 pill that will save you from a fatal disease. You have a device that can beam your voice around the world. You're driving a vehicle that was impossible 30 years ago. So if you're waiting for external forces to make you happy, you're going to be waiting for a very long time. We have so many resources, so much support compared to somebody who lives in a little village that has no electricity and no healthcare. Yeah, it's a choice. You get to decide what to do with what's being handed to you. That doesn't mean the world is fair. It doesn't mean there isn't trauma and caste and huge problems. It just means that after it's handed to you, you have a choice. And I think choosing to look for something that will be generative and make things better, why not?
Appreciating what we have versus being upset for what we don't.
Yeah, I think that that's a big part of it. What we focus on, Pema Chodron tells a great story. She was at a silent retreat. There were like 20 people in the room, and there's one guy like 4 people away from her who's clicking while he's meditating the whole day. And it's driving her crazy. And she doesn't know what to do because it's silent retreat and everyone's supposed to be nice to each other. And she gets up to give him a piece of her mind. And then she notices he's sitting next to the radiator. And it's the radiator making the noise, not the guy. And all of a sudden, all the pain went away. How can you be mad at a radiator?
When battling brutal Spartan obstacles over a mixture of muddy miles and tough terrain, starting off on the right foot means any foot protected by the lasting comfort and proven durability of Mud Gear socks. Mud Gear started equipping Spartans over 10 years ago, and since then, they've perfected the art of protecting your most valuable race day assets. From the way they fit, to the way they wick and drain moisture, to their strategic cushion and venting, Mud Gear socks are a must for any Spartan hoping to not just survive, but dominate the course. Endure longer and race stronger with Mud Gear socks that are made tougher, just like you. Shop Mud Gear at the Spartan store, at your next Spartan race, or right now at mudgear.com.
When I was in university, I was taking a big Psych 101 class, and that lesson was taught with a different analogy, which was, Seth and Joe are having dinner in a restaurant, and the people next to us notice that we don't leave a tip. They right away assume that we must be really evil people and cheap, but they didn't notice that the waiter spilled coffee on your lap and the waitress came over and tripped on it. All those things happened. And that lesson really changed my life because you can jump to conclusions about things, or you could just take a pause and say, hang on a second, I don't know the whole story, right? And that's a game changer.
Yeah, I don't think any of us do.
That's a game changer. Look, I think when we go back, let's go back for a second. When we think about the idea of changing lives and not having to put on events as a company, really what you just said is the thing that I want. Yes, I want people to drink more water, eat healthier, work out more. But what you just said about happiness and making a conscious decision to appreciate what you have and smile, like that's really what the goal is. And that's an easy one to go viral.
I guess it's not actually. It's a really hard one. I guess what I'm saying is this. Every great brand, if it's really a great brand as opposed to a great technology or patent-protected monopoly, it's a great brand because I am paying extra for the way it makes me feel. It's a persistent brand because there's a community associated with it. That if I'm wearing my Apple logo pin and someone sees me in the airport, what am I wearing now? I'm wearing my UN pin here. We nod at each other because we're part of something. So you know what you're doing? Joe, you're building a religion. And if you're building a religion, the question is, should you be investing in cathedrals or should you be investing in putting books in hotel rooms? Because cathedrals get you part of the way there, but they don't solve the problem. What it is to have a religion, people like us do things like this. What are things like around here? Who's an insider? Who's an outsider? Where are the deacons and the bishops? And what's the hierarchy? All of those things. There can be no doubt that Apple is a religion. But I think there's also no question that Nike has a religion. And we can go down the list. And there are tiny little bakeries that also are like that, where when 7 people are in line at that cheesecake place just before Christmas, it's like a family reunion. If that's what you really want to build, I think you know what to do, but it's really scary. It's not easier. It's not likely to work, but that's the mission.
I love the sentence. Should you be building cathedrals or putting books in hotels? That is game-changing sentence for me. What's going on with Ukraine when you look at it from a marketing perspective? And Zelensky, I spent some time over there during the war, and I got excited about, what appeared to be David and Goliath, right? I don't know. Are they making I'm just curious from a marketing perspective. I know it sounds silly when we're talking about a war, but what's going on there?
I have no idea. I can talk about marketing as the metaphor that it is. It's true stories that stick with us that we want to spread. But it's also true that any story we tell is not the actual, that the map and the territory are different things. So people characterize whatever they see through their lens, through their eyes. I am sure that a refugee is telling themselves a different story about what you saw than what you saw. And the empathy that it takes to realize we're all dealing with stories all the time. That's all we have. How do we make them useful? That becomes fascinating. It's never particularly useful to have an argument with people about details that don't matter. It's really useful to understand why we're arguing in the first place and why do different people want different things and what's the agenda like. A short way of saying is some people say, I don't want the whole cake, I just want your piece. And you can see how that can't possibly work for everybody because then someone ends up with the whole cake. We've got to understand what does it trigger for us in our memory. If you grew up during the Blitz in the UK, your experience of what's happening in some countries is different than if you were privileged enough to be insulated. People who don't remember the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Berlin blockade might think that something's different now, worse, better, whatever. So we have a worldview. That worldview informs our story. And it informs our story when we smell an apple pie, when we hear the sound a car door makes when it slams, or when we look at world politics. It's all storytelling.
You use the cake analogy. My son, Charlie, we have 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls. When he was young, I noticed that all his friends and family, his brothers and sisters, everybody would get excited that he was about to have his cake for his birthday. And he would, at 4 years old, he would say, no, we're going to wait till tomorrow. Just to piss everybody off. It was like, I don't know. We need a psychologist for that one. Seth, you're awesome. How do people find you? I mean, outside of the 19 or 20 or 21 books.
I'm not here to hustle anything, but if you go to seths.blog, there's 9,000 blog posts and an AI bot. You're welcome to them. I'm launching a new charity project next month or so, which I'll be announcing on the blog. And mostly I'm just here to help people level up. You will find your own way to do that. Maybe you will find it in the mud on an obstacle course, and maybe you will find it by quietly helping somebody who really needs to hear from you. Everyone who's listening to this has already succeeded. The question is, will you choose to matter? And we are living in a moment where we need more people to choose to matter.
Let's get you to come talk to Citi Field is not that far from you. How far? 12 miles, you said?
I can almost ride my bike there, but I would probably take my car.
I'd love to have you. I think we're early June in Citi Field, if somehow it lined up, or Fenway in November, because I'll literally have, 8,000, 10,000 people sit around and listen to you for 10 minutes if you want. Like, we could have some fun.
Let's try it by email. We'll see what happens.
You're awesome.
When battling brutal Spartan obstacles over a mixture of muddy miles and tough terrain, starting off on the right foot means any foot protected by the lasting comfort and proven durability of Mud Gear socks. Mud Gear started equipping Spartans over 10 years ago, and since then, they've perfected the art of protecting your most valuable race day assets. From the way they fit, to the way they wick and drain moisture, to their strategic cushion and venting, Mud Gear socks are a must for any Spartan hoping to not just survive, but dominate the course. Endure longer and race stronger with Mud Gear socks that are made tougher, just like you. Shop Mud Gear at the Spartan store, at your next Spartan race, or right now at mudgear.com.